Okay, grade 5s and 6, welcome to our third topic in Unit 3 of Language Power, Parts of Speech. We're going to be talking about pronouns today. Now, we already mentioned pronouns in our first video when we were talking about nouns because we said that pronouns replace nouns. They take the place of a noun. So that means that pronouns are going to refer to a person or a place or a thing. So that's a pretty easy way of thinking about pronouns. There are a bunch of different types of pronouns, and we're going to go through them one at a time here and look at a bunch of different uses. Now, I am going to go through this in a little bit of a different order from the grammar book because I think that this might be a little bit easier to see. So just know that this is not the same order as the grammar book. So we've got a bunch of different kinds of pronouns. First type we're going to take a look at is the subject pronoun. Think back to Unit 2 in our grammar book. The subject is the subject of a verb, right? So that tells us who or what is doing the action of the verb, and it means that a subject pronoun will come before a verb. Now, on my next sheet here, I've written out the subject pronouns in a chart form. And I could write them out in a list, but I thought that this might help you to kind of see the differences between them. So we've talked before, especially in our reading stuff, about first person, second person, third person. And then obviously singular and plural is pretty easy to understand. If I think about first person, that means that I am involved in who's talking. So if it's first person singular, it's just me, and I would say I. If it's the subject of the verb, I'm doing the action. I am talking. If it's plural, it means it's me and a bunch of other people, so we. Second person is you. I'm talking to you or about you, somebody else, and I'm talking directly to them, so you or you. Now notice that my singular and plural are exactly the same forms here. Most other languages have a different word, but in English our pronoun is the same for singular or plural, and you just have to tell by the context whether I'm talking to one person or two people or multiple people. Think about French. Singular would be tu, and plural would be vous, right? Third person is if I'm talking about somebody else or something else or someplace else, because a pronoun can be a person, a place, or a thing, right? So if I'm talking about a boy, it would be he. If I'm talking about a girl, it would be she. If I'm talking about something that's not a gendered item, a thing or a place, it would be it. And if it's plural, it's they. So here are two example sentences. I went to the bank. What's my subject pronoun here? It's I. I went to the bank. I is before my verb. I is doing the action of the verb. Here's another one. You go to John Knox. What's my subject pronoun? It's you. In this sentence, am I making it clear if you is singular or plural? I might be talking to a group of people, or I might be talking to just one person. So it's not actually clear from the context because I don't have an antecedent. Wait till the end of the video. We're going to talk about what an antecedent is. My next kind of pronouns are object pronouns. And objects are the object of a verb. Now, that's kind of a terrible definition because what does that mean? Well, that means two different things. It means that they come after the verb and they receive the action of a verb. Well, that clarifies things, right? Maybe not so much. So let's take a look at some examples of object pronouns to kind of get our heads around what we mean by object pronouns. Basically, object pronouns just means that they're not the subject of a verb, and they receive the action of a verb. Will make a lot more sense when we take a look at some examples. Here's my same chart, only this time I've got the object pronouns in it. Notice that in that row here where I was talking about singular and first person, if it was talking about I, it's become me, and we has become us. Look at you. In second person here, you or you, I have exactly the same word that I did in my subject pronouns. So you is either a subject pronoun or an object pronoun, and the usage, where it is in the sentence, will tell me whether it's subject or object. If I'm talking about a boy, it's him. About a girl, it's her. About something that doesn't have a gender, it would be it. And if that's plural, it would be them. Here are some example sentences again. Bob gave the book to me. Well, here's my object pronoun, and look, where's my verb? Bob, or gave. My subject is Bob, my verb is gave. Me, my object pronoun, is coming after my verb and receiving the action of the verb. Second sentence, she was talking with him. I've put a subject pronoun in here, but look, here's my verb, was talking. Who was talking? She was talking. So she is my subject pronoun, and him is my object pronoun, coming after the verb and receiving the action of the verb. These two words in front of my object pronouns in both my sentences are prepositions, and we're going to be taking a look at prepositions later in this unit, but it's just important for us to note that a lot of times object pronouns will have prepositions in front of them. Our next type of pronoun is a possessive pronoun. Now we looked at possessive already in nouns, and possessive pronouns are pretty similar. So possessive pronouns show the ownership of something. Just like if I say Miss Pasma's '(s) book, that shows that it belongs to me, shows the ownership. Pronouns that are possessive show that something belongs to a person. So there are two different types here, and we're going to look at the list and then we're going to look at how they occur. So some of them stand alone, and those ones are mine, yours, his, hers, ours, and theirs. Some of them only go before nouns: my, your, his, her, its, our, their. Look at the difference here. A lot of these, we're just adding an S if we say they stand alone, right? Your, yours. Her, hers. Our, ours. Their, theirs. But one of the ones for us to mention specifically is that his we have in both categories, exactly the same word. And my and mine is a different word, changing quite a bit. So what do we mean by they go before a noun or they stand alone? Let's take a look at some example sentences. In our first set here, two sentences. My grandma is 98 years old. What would be the possessive pronoun? It would be my. Now, if I didn't use a pronoun here, I would need to say Miss Pasma's grandma is 98 years old. And I would, of course, have that apostrophe S, right? Miss Pasma's grandma is 98 years old. Second sentence, hers is 62 years old. What's my possessive pronoun? From my list before, I can remember that it's hers. Look at the difference here. My is coming in front of a noun. Hers does not have a noun right after it, and it's got that S. If I didn't have the S, I would need to say her grandma is 62 years old, right? But I know from the context here that when I say hers is 62 years old, I'm referring to her grandma. That's my antecedent. We'll come back to that in a minute. Second set of sentences. That is your book. That book is yours. Okay, my possessive pronoun here first is your, right? The book belonging to you. That book is yours. Yours would be my possessive pronoun. Notice again, yours coming in front of a noun. Yours with the S doesn't have a noun after it. Now in my sentence here with the standalone one, hers was at the beginning of a sentence. Here it's at the end. So they can be either place or in the middle of the sentence, depending on how I write it. It doesn't matter, and I can use them either way. Our next kind is indefinite pronouns. Indefinite is related to undefined. Think about something without a definition. So indefinite means that it's not specific. We've kind of looked a little bit at indefinite stuff in French, the difference between le and un, where un is indefinite and le is definite. Indefinite pronouns mean that they don't refer to a specific person, place, or thing. That will be clarified when we look at some examples here. Here's some examples. Anyone, anybody, anything. I could add to that anywhere. Each, everyone, everybody, everything. I could have such a long list here that you would not want to sit and watch me read through it all. So this is just a few examples. Now these ones are all singular. They're one. So anyone, even though that might refer to like kind of the idea of more than one person, the pronoun itself is singular. So I say anyone is, or is anyone there. These ones here, both, few, many, several, some, these ones are plural. So obviously if I say both, it's like two, right? So that's a plural pronoun. Now if I say, is anyone there, am I referring to a specific person? I don't know who it is, that's why I'm saying anyone. Or I will talk to anybody that I meet on the street. I don't know who the person is, that's why it's called indefinite. So those are our four basic types of pronouns. We're going to have a separate video looking at two other cases, but before we continue, grade 6s, I just want to point out something that some terminology that you should understand and some funny sentences that result if we're not careful. So antecedents. I've referred to that a couple different times in the video. An antecedent means a noun that comes before a pronoun. An antecedent is a noun. Ante here isn't ante with an I, it's ante with an E, and this ante means comes before. So in most cases, an antecedent comes before a pronoun. It's the noun that helps us to understand what the pronoun is referring to. Sometimes it's in the same sentence, sometimes it's in a different sentence. If we don't have it at all, we just don't know based on context. So I've talked a bunch of times about context, and that's why this is important. Let's take a look at an example. Bob wanted to visit his grandma. What's my pronoun in my sentence? It's the pronoun his, which remember is a possessive pronoun showing who the grandma belongs to. Now, who is his referring to? His is referring back to Bob. So Bob is the antecedent of the pronoun his, showing us who that pronoun is referring to. Or some pronouns would show us, tell us what or where, right? But the antecedent is helping us understand based on context. Now, what happens if we're not careful with our antecedents? We get some hilarious sentences. Here are a couple of examples. These ones aren't necessarily funny, they're just confusing first. Michelle told Candace that she would be attending the dance. What's our pronoun? It would be she. Now, what type of pronoun is she? This is some good review. She would be a subject pronoun, right? Coming before the verb would be attending and as the subject of the verb. Now, what's the antecedent of she? Well, I have two possibilities in the sentence. I have the girl Michelle and I have the girl Candace. So in this case, I don't have a clear antecedent. And is Michelle telling Candace that Michelle is attending the dance or that Candace is attending the dance? I don't actually know based on this sentence, and I have a problem because of my unclear antecedent. Here's another example. The suitcase was on the plane, but now it's gone. What's my pronoun? It's the subject pronoun it, referring to an item without gender, right? So a thing instead of a person. It is gone. It's not the possessive it, its, without an apostrophe. What is it referring to? Again, I have two possibilities. It might be referring to the plane. It might be referring to the suitcase. Based on the context, it would make most sense if I were referring to the suitcase being gone, but it's also a possibility that the plane is gone, and that's why I can't find the suitcase. So my antecedent isn't clear, and because of that, my sentence isn't clear. Now, sometimes, like I said, this causes some silly sentences. Here's an example. Bob took a look at the man across the table and then took a bite of his hamburger. What's my pronoun? It's the possessive pronoun his. Now, is his referring to Bob or is his referring to the man across the table? It would be a little bit hilarious if Bob took a look at the man across the table and then just took a bite of the man's hamburger. So hopefully my author or writer is trying to refer to Bob taking a bite of his own hamburger. But if I don't specify his own, or if I don't say Bob's hamburger, because I have two possible antecedents, I don't have a sentence that really makes sense. All right, you know your 4 basic types of pronouns. You've seen what antecedents are. Time to get to work in your grammar book on different types of pronouns, and you can come back and check out 2 different other topics, subject pronouns with linking verbs and the use of who or whom. Make sure you ask if you've got any questions, and good luck on those exercises.